Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Bass Chaplain Fishing Podcast, where faith and fishing hook up. Today, got a big show for you, all the way from Payson, Arizona. Now, let me tell you, that's one of the prettiest places you'll ever visit in your life. Clifford Pirch from Payson, Arizona on the Bassmaster Elite Series is going to be our guest today. Cue the music coming right up on the Bass Chaplain Fishing Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Bass Chaplain Fishing Podcast, where faith and fishing hook up. Today, I have as my guest from Payson, Arizona, Clifford Pirch. Clifford, what's going on out there?
Hey, Chris. Well, I'm just working on tackle a little bit today and enjoying a little bit of time at home.
What's the weather out like that? Payson, Arizona is the prettiest place I think I've ever been in my life. I'm very jealous that you live in Payson, Arizona.
Yeah, it's I do love it here, but it's hot. I think we're 90 today, but we don't have the humidity like you guys have, so that's probably like 80 where you're at. But we do have some thunderstorms rolling in. This is our monsoon season just trying to start right now. We got a little sprinkle, a little shower about 15 minutes yesterday, and we might get one here during this podcast. So I'm kind
Man,
of hoping, really. I
yeah,
hope
we're
it
gonna
doesn't
have to
interrupt the
move,
podcast.
on that. So, hey, so tell us about your fishing journey. Now, you're a Western angler, but you fish the Bassmaster Elite Series, which means you got a 40-hour drive every time we have a tournament. You're the biggest road warrior that I know. And so, tell us a little bit how what got you into professional fishing? What's your story there?
Well, I just always loved bass fishing and fishing in general. And ever since I was a kid, I just wanted to find a way to do that, make a living doing that. And I think, I didn't know whether it would be, working for like the game and fish department or as a marine biologist or as a pro fisherman, but I really wanted to be in, pro fishing. I was always really wanted it to be something around bass fishing and pro fishing. And like as I got through high school and into high school, I really kind of more wanted to be a pro bass fisherman. So I've always just loved the outdoors. My dad took me fishing since I could walk and before, and so I just love it. I live right here on a little trout stream in Arizona, and I still love to just go fishing any chance I get.
Man, that's awesome. Hey, so one thing that people probably don't know about you is that you had a job at one time being like a fire jumper or a firefighter, plowing out fires or beating out fires or whatever. Tell us a little bit about that. How'd you get into that?
Well, that was a fun summer job around here. I did it for about 6 seasons after high school, 6 summers, and it was just we have wildland fires, so it's something that just happens around here. We couldn't wait to have a thunderstorm roll through like this because you were going to get some starts, and I'm sure there's some guys anticipating that today around here. You can hear that thunder a little bit maybe in the background, but it was a fun job. I enjoyed fighting fires. I mean, we used a helicopter. We rappelled out of a helicopter. Crazy job, lots of fun, lots of excitement, and just we were an initial attack crew, so when it happened, we got to go to the hottest, most exciting part, and we kind of knocked it out. A lot of times that we went to another one or got to go back. So it was a fun job. It was exciting and something you probably do in your 20s, but not do in your 30s or 40s or 50s.
Wow, man, I tell you, that's an exciting job. I'm telling you, I'm like again, I'm jealous, about all the stuff you've done and everything. But so you started out, fishing in the West, and you've had a couple of one bass championships. Tell us a little about those. You're kind of known as kind of a drop shot guy, but I've seen you do some other stuff as well. You probably don't want to tell anybody that you do other stuff. That's kind of a big secret. But tell us a little bit about the starting as a Western angler out there.
Well, I like all kinds of different styles of fishing, power fishing, soft plastics, flipping, anything you can do. Um, but I guess maybe I have migrated towards a lot of drop shotting because it was a technique that I had the opportunity to be on in the early stages of it before a lot of the eastern part of the country did it. So it's something I kind of took with me. Now, that being said, I really didn't do it a ton out west. I mean, I did it, don't get me wrong, because everybody does it. Everybody had to do it. And it's a great way to catch them. But I was almost more of a power fisherman, my first 4 or 5 years of my career. And having to be more consistent, finish, make the Bassmaster Classic, get those points, get those checks, be able to stay out there. I needed to make sure I had lots of tools to adapt and be consistent, make sure I did good, but you don't always win. It's a great way to win a smallmouth event. Now it's a pretty good way to win a forward facing sonar event because it's a really good target tool. But you know, you're gonna you're gonna have a better chance to win flipping a jig. Running a deep crankbait. Now we got a lot of different things going on where you can see them, but I really like power fishing to begin with. But I like it all. I do it all, and probably looking back, I probably should have stuck with more of that rather than getting fearful about making it or doing a good job. Being consistent. That is just kind of the nature of how I felt like I needed to be able to get checks, stay on the road, stay relevant. And I made the classic the first 7 years on the Elite Series, and I think I made maybe five Forest Wood Cups on the MLF side, or I guess that's the Red Crest now. And so it's just a way to be consistent, catch fish, make sure you're in that championship in the end.
Yeah. One of the things I've seen, I'll tell a story about you. The first time, back in the day, I used to be able to ride in the boat on practice day. They don't let me do that anymore, but I was riding with you one time and you said, "Hey, you asked me about drop shot and let me show you." And I don't know if you remember this or not, but you pulled up Toledo Bend just on a random dock and you caught one on the first cast. You're like, I mean, it was just like bam. It was like, okay, I want you to show me. And then we were at Lake Fork one time. We're going in to eat, and of course, my priority is eating. And me and Mark were on the way up to eating, and you just sat out there on the edge of the boat and threw up on the boat ramp and caught like five bass off of the boat ramp, just sitting there right there. That it was stunning, and really, you were kind of the reason I started messing around with a drop shot and messing around with that kind of stuff. But as far as a drop shot goes, what do you think? What's the biggest mistake that guys make when they drop shot? I mean, what's some things that would help guys understand what's important about it?
Well, there's a number of aspects. I think if I had to do like a little clinic on it, one of the things I see people doing because you're used to imparting action in your bait,
Yeah.
um, people move the weight, and you don't want to move the weight. The weight's an anchor. There's times where we drag it. There's times where you might hop it or try to trigger a bite, but I'm using the weight to keep it in a target. Keep it in the strike zone. So that's probably the biggest mistake I see people do. When they're moving their bait, I'm moving the slack line, but someone else might be moving that weight goes up and down. The weight comes off the bottom, and and you see it in videos all the time. Somebody tries to film a drop shot video, and you get the guy on the camera, and they're jiggling it all over the place, going crazy. But that's not really the way to fish it. The way to fish it is, on a semi slack line with that weight keeping as an anchor. So that's the biggest mistake I see people doing is moving it too much.
You changed my whole deal right there. I just thought about I do that every single time. I'm sitting there hopping the weight and
Yeah,
moving the weight. So basically, essentially
your
what you're
worm is
doing is calling the fish
crazy.
to the bait.
Yeah, your worm's going crazy. You don't need all that action. It just the anchor, the weight is an anchor. Like you're throwing at a target, you're throwing at a dock pole, you're throwing at a tree, you're throwing at a rock, you're throwing at a fish on your sonar. You're throwing at a target, and that weight acts as an anchor. Now, there's some times where we drag in current, river current, things like that, where yeah, you're using it as a drift tool, but a lot of times it's just really a target bait.
That's a God, I've learned. I'm glad you came on here today just so I could learn that right there
Yeah.
again. I'm trying to improve, every single day. Well, you fish a lot of different lakes out there, and I see pictures of like giant fish out there. I mean, why do you think? I mean, is it just because Arizona is kind of Is it a secret or what's the deal about why don't you hear more about these awesome Arizona lakes? I mean,
I don't know. I wish the Elite Series would come out here, and that was major factor in why I switched tours, like 12, 5, 13 years ago, 14 years ago. And I wanted to fish the Bassmaster side because they came out west occasionally. Now they did the first time in like 14 or 15, and I almost won both of them. It was really good stretch for me, but they've not come back since. So I really wish they would come out here, but we've got some great fishing. After 20 years of traveling, um, my four biggest bass still come out of my home lake, just right down the road, right here. So, I've caught 10s and 11s in California, Florida, Texas, and my four biggest are still out of my home lake here in Roosevelt.
man, Roosevelt, that's all I've heard about, and I know there's Apache up there and a couple other, but I see these giant fish coming out of there all the time, and I'm like, man, I want to come up there. I want to come to Arizona. That's where, you don't hear about Arizona being a destination bass fishery on the East Coast. Everybody
Yeah.
wants to go to Fork or they want to go, wherever, Okeechobee or wherever like that. But man, Arizona's got it going on. I really do.
Yeah, it's and we're in a good swing right now. Like we've got several lakes that are at the peak and probably the best they've been in my lifetime. Like Roosevelt, Saguaro is the bottom one on the chain, and it's been putting out some crazy weights. I know a guy had 50 pounds this spring. Another couple guys had 42, 44, and five fish limits. And so really good potential to catch great big ones. And I love fishing out here because it's still fishing. A lot of places we go, especially kind of where you live, in those Carolinas, there's places where they get fished for so much. You
Yeah.
mentioned Lake Fork. I mean, they're smart and educated. They get fished for so much that it's hard to get one to bite a lot of times. And they still bite here. That's what I love. I go fishing and if we don't catch 20, I feel like it's kind of a bummer day. And I'm really looking to maybe catch 40 or 50 when we go. So I love it here.
Man, that's what I need. I need to find some dumb big fish. I really
Yeah,
do.
me too.
That's the deal. There's
Yeah.
too many smart fish going there. Well, outside of the fishing thing, you're also the most avid hiker that I know, and I know your hiking is tied to elk hunting. And I remember one time you did a Zoom call with us, and you were walking the whole time. You're holding the phone up, and you were walking, and we did it for an hour, and you were walking the whole time. And then, I called you afterwards and said, "Are you almost there?" You go, "No, I got about 3 hours left to get to my truck." I mean, what is that all about, man? Good night.
Well, I remember that one. I had service. Ironically, I had service where I was at that day, and I was just horn hunting, looking for elkhorn sheds, and I love hiking all these mountains around here, and finding elkhorn sheds. I bought my first truck and boat. My truck when I was about 18, 17 or 18, with elkhorn money. So that's something I love to do, and it's I live kind of in the middle of that. That's one of the reasons I haven't moved back east is because I like the whole, the climate, the elk hunting, the outdoors, the hiking, the fishing, and yeah, that's one of my favorite things.
Well, you do some elk guiding as well. And so,
Yeah, yeah, I do some guiding in the off season, a little bit during mainly November, December, but yeah, it's just part of living out here in the West.
yeah, I know you're about to get a storm in here. So, I know when we do our meet the pros, sometimes you're always one of our key speakers. And I know that you come from a family of faith. I know your dad, man, you talk about a hiker. Your dad is like a legend up there. And was he something like 80 some years old and he hikes people in the ground and unbelievable. So he was a big part of your life and all that. So tell us about your faith journey.
Yeah, well, my dad, uh, he is a legend. He is a legend. And we still, every pack out for elk, he's on the pack out. So we love that. And I hope it lasts much longer.
Mm.
But I'm thankful for him because he's really active, does lots of stuff with us, but he's also been a huge example to me and hundreds, thousands of people in this area. He was a coach for, probably 20 some 30 years, and wrestling coach. And, he's in the Hall of Fame in Arizona, in the National Coaches Hall of Fame in Oklahoma. And um, he's the best example of a human I could ever find. And he happens to be my dad. So I'm really lucky about that.
Mm.
And I don't expect to ever fill his shoes, but I do have a good role model to try to follow. And the best I could do doesn't ever uh, stack up, but he's been a great man of character and faith, and like I said, been a good example for me. And so my faith is strong, not because of his example, but because of what I choose to believe. I had to choose that for myself too, and we all come to a point where we got to make our own choices, and make a choice whether we follow the Lord or we believe that, or whether we reject it. And so that I've seen that a million times in my life, where the truth of God has been made evident all around me. So I really I have a strong faith. And as a pro bass fisherman, if you want to do something in a career that grows your faith, be a pro bass fisherman, because there's there's a whole lot of faith involved. But I again, I'm thankful that I get to do what I get to do. But I also always want to honor God with my platform, with my gifts, my skills, my time. And even though I don't always, wind's blowing here a little bit now, but
You're
still able
good.
to hear me.
Yeah, we're
But
good.
even though I don't always do as good a job as I would like, or stack up, I feel, well, I know what I'm trying to say, but I really, my faith is the biggest part of my life. Following the Lord, uh, making a choice to be a Jesus follower, is is the only really thing that matters. And the rest of my life kind of comes in place, falls in place uh, when I keep that the main point. But and luckily, he did all the work. He did all the payment. He paid for my debts, my failures, because I fail daily, regularly. Even still, being a believer for all these years, man, I struggle with all kinds of stuff. But thankfully, God is faithful, and He's blessed me in all of it, and forgives me, and works in all of my failures to bring you know new things, and work on things in my life that I'm glad He's patient with me. And where I feel good that I still get a chance to fish and do this kind of stuff for a living, because I hope that He's able to use me somehow in it, even though I feel a little more useless here lately, and less successful here in the last year or so. But I'm really thankful to be able to do this.
Man, I tell you what, every time, you're one of the only pros that will let me back your boat in the water. And me and my buddy Woody, we love doing that. And it's hard to get a pro to let you ever do that. That's really tough. But every time I've ever gotten in your truck, I mean, you've got the Christian music blasting. And, I know you do your devotionals every morning. Excuse me, I'm getting choked up. But, man, it's been awesome, just kind of, being around you and getting the opportunity to hang out. And we appreciate you, letting us hang out. So you got a couple of we got a little break on the Elite Series. We're kind of in the month of July right now, and I got a little break. You got a couple more coming up, and the big question that I ask everybody, and so get ready, buckle in. So the live scope deal. Where are you? Where are you on your live scope philosophy? I know where I am in mine. And so I tell people
Yeah,
what live scope has done for me is it shows me the fish I can't catch. And so that's the deal with me. So but
yeah, you've never made a cast that a fish didn't see your bait. That's one thing you learn about that.
yeah.
But I mean, it's a new thing. It's something we got to deal with. Um, there's no denying that the rookie class or those young college anglers are just clobbering veterans like me, and so I really don't like that it's such a big deal, because I feel like it's become such an amazing tool that it just trumps everything else. So um, it's something that I have to be an expert at, and I'm really good at it, like, compared to just Joe Blow fishermen. But there's definitely a level higher that those 19, 20, 23 year olds are they're just better at it because they've made that a sole focus. And I think a veteran angler has to wrestle with uh, historical techniques, historical patterns, ways to, you know, just pattern fish, look at the evidence, look at variables, and you spend a lot of time doing that. And really the tool of the live technology, um, it it makes a lot of that stuff irrelevant when you boil it down. And it's just hard to forget a lot about what you know about bass fishing. So I know it's a huge debate. The young guys, oh, the old guys are crying, the old guys are out, the young guys are, that's all they do. And so it's a back and forth. But um, I hope that there's something that they can do to kind of balance it at least a little bit. And maybe some events with, some without, and balance it. So we'll see where that goes in
Yeah.
fishing. But it's
Well, man,
I
I
do enjoy.
appreciate your, I appreciate your honesty about that, and I appreciate your, opening up about it. And the way you represent yourself is unmatched, on the Elite Series, and appreciate everything that you do. Let me ask you this now: if people want to follow you on social media, how do we get in touch with Cliff Pirch? Or maybe somebody wants to get you as a guide out there. I know I want to get you as a guide on Roosevelt, and
Yeah.
or maybe they want to try to get into the elk game. What do they do? How do they contact you?
Well, yeah, any social media or Facebook and Instagram is probably the easiest way, at Clifford Perch Outdoors. And I do have a website at perchoutdoors.com, but Clifford Perch Outdoors, social media is pretty easy to get to me.
Yeah, Clifford Pirch, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you what you don't want to do. You don't want to try to out hike this guy. You don't want to try to wrestle him, and you certainly don't want to be fishing against him. I know that. That's the deal. Well, man, I know you got a storm coming in. I appreciate you hanging with us today, and we will catch you next time. How about it?
All right. All right. Thanks, Chris.
All
Good
right,
to talk.
brother. This is
All right.
Chris Wells, the Bass Chaplain, and this is the Bass Chaplain Fishing Podcast, where faith and fishing hook up.